On the outside, they looked like the perfect couple, high school sweethearts, married young, with good jobs, a nice house, and smiling photos from weekend trips. Their life seemed steady, safe, and maybe even a little boring. And then one night, they both died. Or at least, that's what the world was told. The husband worked in construction, the wife in medical billing. They lived in a small town where everyone knew each other, and for nearly 10 years, nothing about them stood out, until the morning the husband's truck was found at the bottom of a ravine. It was still running, the driver's door was open, and his body was inside. Police ruled it an accident within hours. It had rained, the roads were slick, and there were no signs of braking. It seemed like a straightforward tragedy. His wife was destroyed. At least, that's what her friends thought. She cried. She fainted at the funeral and clutched the closed casket, telling everyone she couldn't live without him. Then, 3 weeks later, she disappeared too. Her car was found near a river 2 counties away, and locked, with her purse still inside. Her phone was discovered downstream days later, but her body was never recovered. Officials said she had jumped. A double tragedy. Two tragic deaths also meant two insurance policies. The husband had one for $750,000. The wife's was worth just over $1 million. The payouts were approved within 6 months, but their families received nothing, because the policies named only one person as the beneficiary, each other. Which meant the money went exactly where it was supposed to go, to no one. And so, the case was closed. Until 3 years later, nearly 400 miles away, a woman was arrested for trying to use a stolen identity at a hospital. She panicked when security approached and tried to run, but she tripped and fell. When police searched her bag, they found something strange. A driver's license with her face, but a dead woman's name. It matched the wife from the double tragedy. At first, officers thought it was a simple case of identity theft. But then facial recognition suggested something impossible. The suspect wasn't pretending to be the dead woman. She was the dead woman. Detectives from her home state were flown in immediately. They sat her down in an interrogation room and asked one simple question. How are you alive? She stared at the table for a full minute before answering. Because my husband pulled me out of the river. That single sentence cracked the entire case wide open. Within days, investigators found a quiet man living in a desert town under a fake name. He worked construction, paid for everything in cash, and had no social media presence. His face was a perfect match for the dead husband. They arrested him at a work site without warning. When he saw the handcuffs, he didn't run. He just closed his eyes and said, "We almost made it." What followed was one of the most shocking confessions detectives had ever heard. The couple had been drowning in debt, medical bills, credit cards, a failed business, lawsuits. They were about to lose everything. One night, after a fight, they joked about their life insurance policies. At first, it was just dark humor. But then, the joke turned serious, and a plan was born. They would both die, but only on paper. The husband went first. He staged the truck crash using a stolen body from a funeral home where a friend worked night security. The body was badly burned in the engine fire, and the dental records were conveniently lost in a clerical mix-up they had paid for. The wife played the grieving widow perfectly for 3 weeks. Then it was her turn. They drove to the river together late at night. She wiped her phone, left her purse, and walked into the water just far enough to make investigators believe she'd been swept away. Then her husband pulled her out downstream where a second car was waiting. They vanished into new identities they'd bought online months earlier, and the insurance companies paid out. They lived quietly after that, in different states, with different names, no photos, no calls to family, nothing digital at all. But money burns fast when you're living in constant fear, and fear makes people careless. That's how she got caught. Once detectives had them both in custody, the charges stacked up: insurance fraud, evidence tampering, identity theft, abuse of a corpse, conspiracy. But there was one more charge no one expected: murder, because the body used in the crash belonged to a homeless man who had died under suspicious circumstances just days earlier. A man the couple had chosen on purpose because he had no family to ask questions. They were both sentenced to decades in prison, all for money they never even got to enjoy. Their families were left with something worse than grief. They were left with betrayal. Parents mourned children who were never gone. Siblings cried at funerals that were a complete lie, and a town learned a terrifying lesson. Sometimes the people who look the happiest have the darkest secrets. If you enjoy dark true stories and solved mysteries and shocking crime cases, make sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching.